Hey, Dahi.
Hi, Dicky. I miss you.
Yeah, you are missed very much. As anyone else is watching this, thank you for taking time to listen to our story. We are going to continue our adventures with the Tales of King Arthur by James Riordan. We are over halfway through, and we only have a couple more short stories left in it. If this is your first time watching any of these books, this is a book called Tales of King Arthur by James Riordan. Don't know if I mentioned that yet.
Yes, you did.
Okay. Um, but it has a collection of small tales that has to do with King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. This one specifically is the quest for the Holy Grail, also called Sir Lancelot's Quest. Let's see. Just after Sir Galahad had left the castle of Weeping Maidens and before he joined the mysterious ship, he met his father, Sir Lancelot, riding through a forest in the company of Sir Percival. But the two knights from King Arthur's court did not recognize Sir Galahad, as he had his visor down and bore the red cross shield. Seeing the strange knight, Sir Lancelot challenged him, and receiving no reply, set to his lance and charged. To his great surprise, however, the knight did not flinch at his approach. Instead, he dealt Lancelot a blow that knocked him to the ground, horse and all. The stranger knight then turned to meet the assault of Sir Percival, who was eager to avenge his companion, but Galahad swiftly disarmed Sir Percival and thrust him to the ground. These jousts took place before a chapel in the forest where a hermit dwelled, and when the old woman saw Sir Galahad ride off, leaving his assailants upon the ground, she cried, "God be with you, Miss God be with you, best knight in all the world. If these two knights had known you, they would surely not have jousted." Hearing that, the two defeated knights wondered with whom they had fought, and though they pursued their victor, he was soon well out of sight, and they had to rein in their mounts. "Let us return to the chapel and ask that hermit for her counsel," said Sir Percival. "It may well be she can advise us where to look for the Holy Grail." "While you do that," Sir Lancelot said, "I'll follow the tracks of that strange knight, for he may be bound for the same goal." The two men parted. By and by, Sir Lancelot found himself in a dense forest with no path to follow. Moving forward slowly, he came at nightfall to a stone cross. As he peered about him, he saw the dim outline of the old chapel, and a glow coming from within that suggested someone was inside. Sir Lancelot dismounted, tied his horse to a tree, and went up to the chapel door. To his surprise, he found it locked, and no one responded to his knocking. Since he could find no way of entering, he finally climbed up the ivy-covered wall and looked in at a narrow window. How amazed he was to see a splendid altar covered in a cloth of shining silk, on which stood a silver candlestick with 6 lighted candles. I don't know. To me, it kind of sounds like Sir Lancelot can't take a hint of "stay out." See, now he was even more eager to gain an entry. Yet, try as he might, he could not squeeze through the narrow window or force the door. At last, tired and disappointed, he returned to his horse and set it free to graze. Then, taking off his sword and helmet, he lay down to sleep beneath the tall stone cross. Presently, not certain whether he was awake or dreaming, he saw approaching 2 white horses pulling a litter in which lay a wounded knight. As the horses reached the cross, they stopped, and the sick knight said, "Oh, sweet Lord, when will this cruel pain leave me? When will thy holy vessel come to heal me of the wound I've borne for so long?" For a long while, the knight lay moaning softly with his pain. until at last a wonder occurred. The door of the chapel opened, and out flew the silver candlesticks with its 6 lighted tapers, as if he upheld silken wings. There came too a table of silver, and on it stood the sacred cup, the Holy Grail. Thereupon the sick knight struggled to sit up, and holding up both hands, he cried, "Fair sweet Lord, who art present in this holy vessel, hear my prayer, and make me whole again." Crawling from his litter along the ground to the silver table, he reached up and touched the Holy Grail, and straightway was cured of his malady. As he gave a prayer of thanks to God, the holy vessel returned with the lighted chandelier and table to the chapel and was lost from view. The knight rose slowly to his feet, kissed the stone cross, and only then noticed the figure of Sir Lancelot. "I thank thee, Lord, that I am well," he cried, "but I marveled at this sleeping knight, who did not awake when the Holy Grail drew near." Then came a voice which said, "He is held in bondage by his sins and cannot stir. This is Sir Lancelot of the Lake, of the Fellowship of the Round Table. He too seeks the Holy Grail, but is not destined to succeed by virtue of his love for the Queen Guinevere." When the voice fell silent, the knight mounted Lancelot's steed and rode away. All the while, Lancelot had lain there upon the ground, unable to move or speak. Now, as the moon appeared between the clouds, he managed to rise and approach the chapel once again. As before, the door was firmly locked. Yet, as he listened, he could hear voices inside singing so sweetly, it seemed alike to no earthly thing. Kneeling before the chapel door, he began to pray. "Sweet Jesus, if I have displeased thee, I will deserve my punishment, but show me, I beg you, the vessel that I seek." At that, the chapel door opened, and Lancelot was blinded by the dazzling light that shone within. It was as bright as if all the torches in the world were there. Shielding his eyes, he was about to enter when a loud voice said, "Lancelot, enter on pain of death. You are unworthy." At once, he drew back in great distress and sorrow. As his eyes grew accustomed to the dazzling light, he saw, in the center of the chapel, the silver table and the holy vessel covered in a red samite cloth. Drawn by irresistible forces towards the Holy Grail, he tried again to enter the chapel. Yet, as he came forward, he felt a breath of withering fire which scorched his face so fiercely that he fell down in faint. Next day, when it was light, he felt many hands upon him, picking him up and carrying his lifeless body. He was taken to a castle where he was laid on a wooden bed. The only sign of life in his body was the faint beating of his heart. Otherwise, it seemed as though he was dead. In such manner he lay not moving day and night, until on the 25th day he opened his eyes and feebly spoke. The servant...
What month is it?
It doesn't say the month. Listen to the story.
What year was that made?
Remind me once we're done with the story. Okay?
Okay.
The servants told him he had lain there 24 days and nights, and he knew at once that his illness was punishment for the 24 years that he had sinned by his love for King Arthur's wife. "Pray tell," Sir Lancelot said, "what is this castle where I lie?" "You are in the castle of Carbonac, home of the Holy Grail," an old man answered. "But you will see no more then you have seen of that vessel. Your quest is at an end. Your fate is harder than stone, more bitter than gall, more bare than the sands of the desert. For you have seen the Grail, but are unworthy. Now go, Sir Lancelot, from this holy place and return to Camelot. When Sir Lancelot heard this, he fell back as though struck a fearful blow, for the harsh words pierced his heart. The servants gave him a horse to bear him to the realm of Logres, and so he departed in a deep sorrow. He rode through many realms, and came at last to Camelot, where he found King Arthur and the Queen. How pleased they were to see him, for over half of the knights of the Round Table had not returned from the quest. They were feared lost or dead. Thus, Sir Lancelot's quest for the Holy Grail ended. If you do not recall from prior readings, the land of Logres is actually what they refer to currently as Great Britain, or the UK, the United Kingdoms.
You have said that a couple on some of the pages.
What, Logres?
No, the other way for UK.
Logres. Logres was the original name that was given to the island that is now currently known as the United Kingdoms, or Great Britain. Now, to answer your question, this book was published in 1984. Alright, now we continue the story of the Holy Grail with Sir Percival's quest. When Sir Lancelot left him to follow Galahad, Sir Percival returned to the chapel and knelt at the hermit's window, saying, "Madam, I am a knight of King Arthur's court. My name is Percival of Gales. I shall not rest content until I have fought with the knight who shamed me. Pray tell me where I may find him." "Ah, Percival," she said, "I see that you are eager to die through envy and false pride. He who struck you down was none other than Galahad, the High Prince of Logres. You did not recognize him because of the shield he bore. The red cross on white is the sign of his holy mission, for the cross was drawn in Joseph's blood." "Madam," said Sir Percival, after a moment's thought, "I thank you for telling me this. I give my word I shall never again be envious of Sir Galahad. Rather, I shall seek to help him on his quest. Tell me, therefore, where I may look for him." Would you like to say hi to your brother? You want to say hi to your cousin Niamore?
Hi.
Niamore.
Night, Dad.
Good night, little ones. I love you.
Merry Christmas, baby. Merry Christmas, Daddy.
"Fair knight," the hermit said, "you should ride to the castle Carbonac. But on the way you must meet and overcome many trials and temptations. Be true to your oath of knighthood, and you will reach your goal." And so Sir Percival departed and rode till the hour of noon, when he met in a valley 20 men of arms bearing a wounded king. And when they challenged him, and he had told them he was a knight of the Round Table, they all cried at once, "Slay him! King Arthur is our foe!" Although Percival knocked his first attacker to the ground, 7 knights at once fell upon him. Also, I forgot to show you this. This is a picture of Sir Lancelot from when praying before the door, as the door opened to reveal the Holy Grail. So, 7 knights at once fell upon him and slew his horse, bringing him down. They would have killed him then and there, had not a lone knight with a red cross Shield suddenly appeared and charged amongst them. The lone knight laid about him to right and left until every man was either slain or put to flight, and then he pursued them into the tree. "Fair knight," cried Percival, "wait, and let me thank you for saving my life." He now realized the strange knight was Sir Galahad, but the gallant horseman rode so fast he was soon out of sight, and since Sir Percival had no horse, he could not follow. Weak from his wounds, he sank down to the ground and, being faint, fell into a deep sleep. When he at last opened his eyes, he saw a strange woman leaning over him, her fierce eyes flashing. "Sir Percival," she said, "what are you doing here?" "I have no horse, so cannot continue upon my quest," he answered. "Then I shall lend you mine, which will take you wherever you wish to go," she said. Sir Percival was delighted with the offer and readily accepted. "Wait for me here," she told him. "I shall fetch my horse." So saying, she departed, but was soon back with a huge black stallion. Percival was astounded when he saw it, for never had he set eyes on so big and strong a steed. Leaping across the black monster's back, he sped off like the wind, flying on and on through the moonlit forest, and covering in an hour some 4 days' journey. At last, the horse brought him to a raging sea that roared and thundered on the beach. It seemed as though the steed would bear him into it, but just as Sir Percival reached the shore, he made the sign of the cross upon his forehead, and the black monster reared up, throwing its rider onto the sand. Without a pause, it plunged into the foaming, roaring waves, neighing eerily and disappearing from sight. As Percival watched in horror, he saw the water burst into flames where the beast had entered. Sounds like maybe it was a hellmount or something. Sir Percival knelt and offered a grateful prayer for his deliverance, for he now knew he had ridden a demon bent on taking him down to hell. He prayed all that night till dawn the next day, and then opened his eyes to see a barge sailing fast towards him, as if all winds in the world were driving it. The barge was covered with silk, blacker than the blackest forest, bare, and there was a gentle woman of great beauty standing at the prow. When she saw Sir Percival, she cried, "Dear sir, what brings you to this wilderness where many men have perished of hunger and misadventure?" "Damoiselle," said Percival, "I serve the best king in the world, and he will not suffer me to die while in his service. I go where I will, but who, pray, are thee?" "Once I was the richest gentlewoman of the realm, but my husband took all my money and drove me out, though I said not one word that could displease him. Since you are a knight of the Round Table, you surely would not refuse to aid a lady in distress." So Percival promised her all the assistance he might give. She thanked him graciously. Summoning servants from the barge, she made them pitch her pavilion upon the strand, and when it was ready, she invited Percival to enter and take refreshments. The day being warm, and Sir Percival parched and hungry, he readily accepted. He was amazed to see so many dishes and wines upon the table. He drank the strongest wine that he had ever tasted, and in no time at all he felt himself more light-headed than he ought to be. The more he drank, the more he cast loving eyes upon the gentlewoman, and she on him, and the dimmer became the memory of his beloved wife at home in Camelot. When the lovely hostess saw him well merry from the wine, she said, "Sir Percival, I shall not yield my love to you unless you vow to be my loyal servant, and do all that I command you." Here you see a picture of the black demon that Percival was riding. And in the far corner, you see him praying after his encounter with it. Let's see. I'm just checking to see how far we have to go to finish this. Because it looks like we have a couple more people we shall follow upon their quest. Fair lady, he replied, I gave you my word upon my knighthood that I shall serve you truly. In that case, she said sweetly, you shall do with me now whatever takes your pleasure. Dear Sir Percival, you are the only knight in the world that I desire. As Sir Percival reached out his arms to embrace the fair lady, he noticed by chance the crucifix on his sword hilt and recalled the vow he made to his wife. At once he made the sign of the cross upon his forehead, and instantly the pavilion turned upside down, whisked up into the air in a black cloud of smoke, and flew towards the wave. And when Sir Percival looked towards the barge, he saw the lady standing there, her face black with rage, shaking her fist at him. The barge was driven away by demon winds, roaring and raging, and soon disappeared over the horizon, leaving a trail of burning water in its wake. So remorseful was Sir Percival at his near deceit that he drew his sword and drove it through his own thigh. Since my flesh would be my master, I must punish it, he cried, and he lay down upon the earth, groaning from the pain in his heart and body. Shortly after, he swooned away and lay there long unconscious. When at last he came to, he saw another ship moored by the same shore, and a holy man bending over him. Sir Percival, the old man said, come into the ship that awaits you here. You have overcome all the trials and temptations. That dame you met with, her black stallion, and the gentlewoman from the black barge were demons sent from hell. But you resisted them. Now come, Sir Galahad awaits you on board. We lack only Sir Bors de Granes, who will be with us shortly. Interesting. And so Sir Galahad gained another of his party members. We now move on to Sir Bors' crest. Sir Bors de Granes, meanwhile, had departed from Camelot in search of the Holy Grail along with the other knights. He had not gone far when he met a priest riding on an ass. Now remember, in this type of old writing, an ass is simply referring to a donkey. You know, just for those who may be giggling or finding it entertaining when it said he was riding an ass. Remember, with some old stories, you have to keep things in context. Okay, I digress. In reply to the priest's salutations and query as to his mission, Sir Bors told him, I am a simple knight from King Arthur's court, who goes forth to seek the Holy Grail. May it be that you can tell me where to find it. There are mighty few knights who shall succeed in that quest, the good man said, and only one shall hold the vessel, and he shall be the best knight in all the world, the purest of the fellowship. But you, Sir Bors, will be there as witness, since, though you are not famous, you are pure in heart and deed. Thus, you will live to tell King Arthur the story of how the quest was ended. Go forward now in confidence and courage. Much cheered by the old priest's words, Sir Bors rode on all that day and night, and at daybreak he had a strange adventure. As he approached a crossroad, he saw two knights leading by a rope a naked man, and each knight was beating him with thorns so that the blood ran down from more than 100 cuts. The wounded man uttered no word and bore his torment in proud silence. To his horror, Sir Bors suddenly recognized the naked, bleeding man as his brother, Sir Lionel. He was about to ride quickly to the rescue when he heard a scream from the other track, and there he saw a knight dragging off a struggling maiden. "Help me! Help me!" she appealed to Sir Bors. "For the love of God, help a maiden in distress!" Sir Bors was now in a cruel dilemma. "If I leave my brother," he thought, "he will surely die. Yet if I desert this maiden, she will be shamed forever, and me as well." Lifting up his eyes to heaven, he said, weeping, "Dear Lord, do not let my brother die, while I go to save the maiden in distress." So he rode down on the knight holding the struggling maiden and cried loudly, "Sir Knight, let that maiden go, or I shall kill you." In an instant, the knight had thrust aside the damsel and snatched up his sword and shield. Even so, Sir Bors got in the first blow and struck him so hard that the sword went through his shield and doublet and deep into his shoulder. As Sir Bors drew out his sword, the knight fainted upon the ground. Turning to the maiden, Sir Bors said, "Fair maiden, you are now free to go in peace." I thank you, noble knight," she said. "That evil man was my cousin, who took me by force from my father's care. Now my father will reward you well." "I seek no reward," he said, "but to fulfill my vow of knighthood. Now forgive me, for I must attend to another urgent matter." And in this picture, you see the young maiden being dragged away by a knight in black armor, bearing a red, almost, it's not quite a dragon or a serpent, but it's definitely some type of reptilian creature on his emblem. Now, fun fact, a lot of the knights of old would sit there and bear various crests on their shields. Some of them being family crests, some of them being their personal crest. Sometimes they would even bear the crest of the army that they follow. And off he rode after Lionel, his brother, following his tracks of blood. Just as the sun was sinking, he arrived at a small chapel on the edge of the forest, and was much delighted to behold Sir Lionel sitting at the chapel door, his wounds salved and dressed. Alighting from his horse, Sir Bors fell to his knees before his brother, crying, "Sweet brother, thank God that you are safe. How did you escape from those villains and come here?" "It was no thanks to you," replied his brother in fury. "You left me for dead, preferring to aid a gentlewoman. Never did one brother to another behave so cruelly. Begone from me, or I shall kill you." When Sir Bors saw how angry his brother was, he held up his hand in supplication, begging to be forgiven for his deed. But in a temper, Sir Lionel leapt upon his waiting horse, and trampled Sir Bors underfoot, causing him such injury that he swooned upon the spot. Then Sir Lionel jumped down, seized his sword, and would have cut off his brother's head had not a monk dashed forward to stop him. "Gentle knight," he cried, "have mercy on your brother. He did his duty, however hard it was for him to choose. Your brother is one of the worthiest knights in Christendom." "Out of my way, Sir Priest," Lionel cried, or God help me, I shall slay you too. In truth, then, sir, the old man said, I would sooner you kill me than him, since my death will do less harm than his. Raising his sword up high, Sir Lionel brought it crashing down so that the monk's grey head went flying from his shoulders. Now that there was no one to restrain him, he then unlaced his brother's helmet and went to cut off the unprotected head. But Bors had recovered from his faint and drew his own sword to defend himself, though he had no stomach for the battle. He was about to put in an early blow, for his brother stood strangely still and silent, when a voice boomed out, Stay your hand, Sir Bors, and bear your brother no malice. A demon had entered him so as to test you. Now Lionel is himself again. Go down to the sea, where a ship with Sir Galahad and Sir Percival on board awaits you. Sir Bors stepped back and spoke gently to his brother. Dear brother, pray pardon me, for the love of God, for all the wrong I've caused you. And Sir Lionel replied, If God forgives you, so do I, and gladly. Thereupon the two brothers embraced and wept. By and by, Sir Bors departed for the sea, and found the ship of which the voice had spoken, covered all in white samite. As soon as he had embarked, the craft set sail and went so fast it seemed that it was flying, yet so dark was it that Bors could not see a thing about him. After he had slept till dawn, Sir Bors awoke and found himself in the company of Sir Galahad and Sir Percival. They too were glad to see him, and each recounted his adventures and temptations. The end of the quest of the Holy Grail. Also, before I get into that, this is a picture of the white ship that Sir Bors went on. And it looks like Sir Bors departed for the seas and found the ship. That's what it claims with the picture. Just in case you didn't quite get a chance to look at it. I know, unfortunately, the webcam isn't the best, but we make do with what we can and make the best of it. The ship sailed on unguided for many days, and in the passing of time, arrived at an unknown shore. The three knights disembarked and found 3 horses waiting, tethered to some trees. They rode forward following a single track until at last they came to the castle of Carbonek. As they entered, they found the main king, Pellam, he who had been wounded by Balin's dolorous blow, waiting to greet them in great joy, for he knew well that by their coming they had succeeded in their quest for the Holy Grail, and he would soon be healed. Wait, did I miss something? They moved forward, following a single track until at last they came to a castle. Nope. So right after the 3 knights disembarked from the ship, they got on their horses and found King Pellam. Got it. For he knew they had succeeded in their quest for the Holy Grail, and he would soon be healed. They entered the chamber where Lancelot and Pellam had once seen a vision of the Holy Grail, took their places at the table, and waited in silence for the fated hour. All of a sudden, at the given moment, the door opened, and 4 maidens dressed in all white came in, 2 bearing wax tapers, the third a holy vessel covered in white samite, and the 4th a spear from which fell drops of blood into a silver dish held in her other hand. The procession moved closer, and the maidens set the candles down upon the table, and next to them, the grail covered in it the cloth and the spear next to the Grail. There's a picture of what looks like Sir Galahad holding the spear above King Pelham's open wounds. Since it's bleeding, I'm curious if it may be the spear Longinus. Alright, let's see. Then the maidens all withdrew. As the three knights gazed on in silence, they saw the figure of a man appear out of the holy vessel, bleeding openly from his side. "My knights and my true children," the figure said, "I shall no longer hide myself from you. I shall reveal something of my secrets that no other being has seen." With that, he picked up the holy vessel and came to Galahad, offering him to drink. Galahad drank deeply from the vessel, and his two companions followed suit. When they had each tasted the holy wine, the apparition gave them his blessings and vanished out of sight. After several moments, Galahad rose and took up the spear lying on the table, bearing it from the chamber of King Pelham's bed. There, holding the bleeding spear above King Pelham's open wounds, he let the drops of blood fall freely. At once the king was cured and rose up from his couch. "Thank you, Sir Galahad, my dear grandson," he said. "For many years I have suffered more pain than any man has yet endured, awaiting your coming. Now I am well again and can live out my life in peace." His mission accomplished, Galahad returned to the sacred room to face his companions. Going up to Sir Percival, he kissed him warmly. Then he went up to Sir Bors and kissed him too, commending them both to God. "Sir Bors," said Galahad, "pray salute my father for me the moment you return, and bid him remember the frailty of human life on earth. Remember me to King Arthur and all the court." With that, he picked up the Holy Grail, and holding it most reverently began to pray. And as he knelt there praying, his soul departed from his body and was carried up to heaven by a host of angels. In awe, the two knights looked on as a hand without a body suddenly appeared, took up the Holy Grail and the bleeding spear, and took them out of sight. They were never seen on earth again. When Percival and Bors realized that Sir Galahad lay dead, they lamented more than men ever have at the death of another. He was buried in the chapel of Castle Carbonac, and as soon as this was done, Percival retired to a monastery, exchanging his armor for a simple habit. Sir Bors stayed with him, though since he intended to return one day to Logres, he did not take religious vows. For a year and 2 months lived Percival a holy life, and then passed out of this earthly world. Sir Bors buried him in great sadness, then made his way back to the sea, where he found the white ship waiting for him. When he was back in Logres, he rode fast to Camelot, and was met with great joy within the court, for many had believed him dead. That long had he been away. He told the story of the Holy Grail, how he and Percival and Sir Galahad had seen and drunk from it, how Sir Galahad's soul passed from him as he held the holy vessel, and how Sir Percival too had died in the monastery. This tale of the quest for the Holy Grail was written down at Arthur's command, and the manuscript later placed in the library at Salisbury. In conclusion, Sir Bors turned to Lancelot and said, "Just before he died, your son asked me to salute you on his part and bid you be mindful of the frailty of human life. He sent too his greetings to King Arthur and all the court. Hot tears rolled down Sir Lancelot's cheeks as he embraced Sir Bors and recalled how he himself had failed in his mission for the Holy Grail, and he knew well the reason why. Now that the quest for the Holy Grail had been fulfilled, and the knights that remained alive had returned to Camelot, there was great joy at court, but there was sadness too, since many seats stood empty about the table, and no new names appeared in golden letters upon the empty chair. There were no new knights to take the place of those now dead, and King Arthur knew that the glory of Logres was drawing to a close. And thus the end of the quest for the Holy Grail. So, I mentioned previously about the Spear of Longinus. The Spear of Longinus is rumored to be a holy relic. I say rumor because facts and history are kind of missing or wish-washy. There's a lot of debate amongst the historical community and the religious community. But the Spear of Longinus is rumored to be the spear that was used by the centurion who pierced Christ's side during his crucifix. As for the Holy Grail was the cup in which Christ's blood was supposed to be caught, therefore making it a holy relic, much like the Spear of Longinus. And from what I got out of context and my belief, the figure that appeared within the Holy Grail was supposed to be Christ himself, or God, showing himself to the three knights, and thus bringing it in. They still believe that the Holy Grail is somewhere out there. And to this day, there are still religious scholars, treasure hunters of all sorts, that dig through old archives and everything and still try to find the Holy Grail. Although, needless to say, those who are in search for the Holy Grail still have yet to find it. Which, if this is to be taken as gospel, is understandable, since when the Holy Grail was taken away by a hand, probably one of the great angels, or one of the archangels. I'm not 100% sure on the religious aspect of it, but it is something that might be a fun history project. Or at least a fun research project. So, that was The Crest of the Holy Grail in The Tales of King Arthur by James Riordan. We are almost done. Once we finish this book, I'm thinking of starting up another series of books. I just haven't decided exactly which. Until then, once I finish this, I'll probably read a couple of different short stories, a couple of kids' books. And following that, I do believe I may start a book called Asian Horror Stories, which is a nice, beautiful book that I picked up from, I think it was Barnes & Noble or Half Price Bookstore, or one of those bookstores, that has a huge collection of different horror stories and ghost stories from various Asian countries. Would you like to say something to your brother or anyone else who's watching?
Good night to he.
Yes. Good night, my little one.
You too, Nehemiah.
Yes. Did he? Your sister likes being very talented.
Oh.
Why don't you show him what you did?
There. That one's...
Any of the... Yeah.
It's not sticky.
So this little gnome ornament that your sister is making is supposed to represent you.
Goes in order.
I think it's a little skinny.
This one's supposed to be big and it has a beard.
Now, my son, is, as I mentioned in previous videos, is in the hospital awaiting a heart transplant. But he's growing. He's 13.5 pounds now.
Almost 14.
Yeah, almost 14 pounds. He's going to be a little bit of a chunky monkey. Now, this is your sister.
Right.
Yeah. That's going to be little Panda. So, this will be for... Ah! Oh, no!
Eh.
Gnome down! Gnome down! This one, it's definitely not dry and needs to be baked. It is going to be Little Mouse.
I have a beard.
This one is for Little Wolf with her nice blonde beard. Say hi, Little Wolf.
Hi.
And of course, the big grumpy one with mold and all the saltiness is going to be the little dragon.
It says Serenity.
You did an amazing job on these.
Later, I'll do you two once I figure out what colors to use for you guys.
Dad likes
The
Black,
Drew-
like Dad's soul.
The Drudad must have a green beard,
Black and green.
like the Green Man. That way I can be the old green
Okay, fine,
cantankerous
then
man.
Mommy has to have the black one with, like,
Purple.
no soul.
Well,
There should be a
Red.
hole where her heart once was.
Purple and red.
but it looks like we got maybe 2 more stories after this one.
Oh,
And then we will be finished with this. Alright. I hope you enjoyed it. Anyone else who happened to be watching this, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And feel free to leave any comments or recommendations that you'd like to see me read. Dahi. Pahak Jiao Na. Pahak Jiao. Good night.
Night, Night, Nehemiah.
Hope you enjoyed it.